Hey everybody, we are back for another 2021-2022 season preview, and we've only got a couple of these left with the season quickly approaching. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting rebuilding team, the Detroit Red Wings, who there's been a lot of discussion about Detroit, all the young talent coming in, Steve Yzerman obviously as the GM and their Yzer plan and whatnot. And what he's going to do to take this team from a rebuilder and build them into a eventual cup contender. They're obviously still very, very much in that process right now, but we are starting to see some more of those young guys in these recent draft picks work their way into the lineup, with at least a couple more big ones looking like they're going to be full-on NHL players this season. So it's definitely an interesting team, and this is such a fun process to watch for me as a hockey fan and someone who really likes to delve into rosters and player development and just everything that goes on in building an NHL team. This is so interesting just to see them go from last place team getting, high draft picks and then slowly but surely taking a step each and every year to get back to being competitive, back to being a playoff team, then competing in the playoffs. And just one step at a time. Steve Yzerman is not going to rush anything. He's done this in Tampa Bay. He's got a lot of experience. He's arguably the best GM in the NHL. He knows exactly what he's doing. And it's just this season is just another step in the process for the Detroit Red Wings. So before we fully get into it, I just ask you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Helps out a ton and is greatly appreciated. Let's get into it. And before we look forward, we have to look back. And last season, the Red Wings actually didn't finish last in their division. They went 19, 27, and 10 on the season. They had 48 points and finished 7th in the Central, which was second to last. But last year was definitely a step in the right direction compared to where they were in 2019-2020. So you're already starting to see a little bit of that progression take place, and I'm expecting more of that progression in the right direction this coming season and look for them to maybe take another step towards being more competitive. Now, they really, really struggled offensively last season. That was kind of the one thing that was just bad for this team was the offense. They only scored 2.23 goals per game, which is absolutely terrible. Second lowest scoring team in the league. Only Anaheim was worse. And, that's definitely something that as more of this young talent gets inserted into the NHL lineup, they're certainly expecting their goal scoring to go up with it. And it should certainly go up with it. Defensively, they actually weren't that bad. Only 3 goals against per game last season. And now that's certainly not great by a playoff team standard or anything, but that's a big, big move in the right direction for the Red Wings. And getting back towards middle of the road defensively, they weren't really a bad team defensively last year, keeping the puck out of their net. And that is a really good sign and a really good step in the right direction that they're getting to be a middle of the road defensive team. And, they're going to look to continue to build on that. Much like their offense in general, their power play was borderline useless last year. Just 11.4% on the power play. Again, not the worst and pretty lucky to not be the worst, but very, very low number there. Pretty darn bad on the man advantage, just like their scoring in general was pretty bad last season. Definitely look for that to be better this year, especially with some of these young, talented players working their way in. Penalty kill was very middle of the road. It was, okay. It wasn't anything great. It wasn't anything to brag about, but it was okay. It was stable, at least at 78.7% on the PK. A lot like their general team defense in general. Just very kind of middle of the road, stable, not great, not terrible, just in the middle somewhere. But that was the Red Wings last season. And then they went out and they made some moves this offseason. Not a ton of huge moves for the Red Wings, but they did make some. And obviously, Yzerman knows, exactly the kind of guys that he's looking for, exactly the kind of moves that he's looking to make. As far as additions go, well, they traded for Alex Nedeljkovic from the Carolina Hurricanes. Never a bad idea to bring in a Calder Trophy finalist to be your goaltender. And Nedeljkovic comes in coming off a very, very good season in Carolina last year. Again, that whole situation with what was happening between him and the Hurricanes is very kind of still convoluted and definitely interesting, but for whatever reason, the Hurricanes decided to move on from a guy that had tremendous numbers, still a young goaltender, and was a finalist for Rookie of the Year, and they just send him off to Detroit, and Detroit says thank you very much. So Nedeljkovic is going to be a fixture in goal for them this season. They also added defenseman Nick Leddy from the New York Islanders. Islanders had some cap trouble. They needed to move a contract. Detroit, who is not even close to the salary cap ceiling, says we'll step right up, and they bring in a solid veteran defenseman in Nick Leddy, who can, help hold down the fort. Only has a year left on his contract, but will just be a veteran in the lineup for this season while they continue to wait for these young guys to get ready. They also made a very, very good signing with Pius Suter from the Chicago Blackhawks. Again, I'm really not sure why the Blackhawks let Suter go. He had a very good season last year, but once again, the Red Wings say thank you very much. I mean, if you're not going to qualify this guy and re-sign him, then we'll gladly take him, and he is certainly going to be a very welcomed addition to the middle six of the Detroit Red Wings lineup. And if he can have another year this season like he did last year, look for him to be a really, really solid contributor that could maybe even push towards 50 points this season potentially. They added a depth defenseman on the back end in Jordan Osterley. They also traded for depth forward Mitchell Stevens from Tampa Bay, and they signed veteran forward Carter Rowney to play a depth role as well. On the subtraction side of things, well, the biggest one, I guess, was Jonathan Bernier, their goaltender, who they included in the Nedeljkovic deal. So Nedeljkovic replaces Bernier, but then Carolina did not sign Bernier, so he ended up going to New Jersey in free agency. But he's no longer with the Red Wings. Richard Panik, he was dealt out away as well. Valtteri Filppula, Franz Nielsen was bought out. Filppula was not re-signed. Glendening and Helm, depth forwards, were both free agents. Alex Biega was not re-signed. Joe Hickett and Matthias Brome was not tendered a qualifying offer. So a lot of depth guys just kind of leaving there. Again, those aren't like huge moves and huge losses for Detroit. It's just a lot of depth guys that have just come to the end of their contract and found their way out. Now it is time to look at my projected roster, and I was trying to save Detroit till towards the end of doing these previews because I wasn't sure who was going to get kept and who was going to end up getting sent down for the Red Wings. But now, this late in the preseason, less than a week to go until the start of the regular season, we have a pretty good idea of who looks like they've made it and who hasn't. So up front, obviously, Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, he finally got into a preseason game last night. Robbie Fabry, Suter coming in. Lucas Raymond, I mean, he's played great all preseason. I think he's going to be a fixture in the top six for the Red Wings this year, and he is one of those super talented young players that I'm talking about. That's really going to have a big impact on the Red Wings. He's going to help their offense. He's going to help their power play. He may be 19 years old, but he has had a very strong preseason, and I love what I've seen from him so far, and he's only going to keep getting better. Philip Zadina, he's been around, but still another young guy. Joe Veleno, another young guy who looks to have a full-time role at the NHL level this year. Michael Rasmussen, Vlad Nemesnikov, Adam Ernie was re-signed. And then you've got, a couple of depth guys in Sam Gagner and Carter Rowney who are, depth players, veteran players, there for their veteran presence, and I would certainly imagine, be kept on the roster. Taro Hirose, he'll be a tweener. With the guys out that they have out right now, I think Hirose has a shot to make the roster in Detroit, but he when certain guys that we'll talk about later get inserted into the lineup, he's definitely someone that would probably find himself on that up and down between the AHL and the NHL. And then Giovanni Smith is another guy like that. He might play a regular fourth line role. He certainly should get some NHL games like he did last year, but I don't know if he's going to be a full-timer in the NHL lineup. I think he's more of just kind of a depth piece that will probably make it out of the gate, but could be sent down later on. On the defensive side of things, obviously you've got Filip Hronek, who has really established himself as a guy that they are building around on the back end. They've inserted Nick Leddy, obviously a veteran guy from the Islanders, and then Moritz Seider, the other, young guy, along with Lucas Raymond. That was a very high draft pick that is now looks like he's being inserted into the lineup full time. He also has had a strong preseason, and it looks like it's time to go for these young guys. Veleno, Raymond, Seider, these guys are going to start having big impacts right away in this Detroit lineup. And these are the guys that Red Wings fans have been waiting for. These are the guys that are going to be the core pieces of the future for the Red Wings, and that it's really exciting to see them now in the NHL and see what they're able to do, how good they're going to get, and watch their development. Veteran D-man Danny DeKeyser is still around. They brought back Mark Stahl on a one-year deal, another, kind of depth veteran guy, more for the locker room than anything else. But really solid guy to have in that locker room. Troy Stetcher's still there. And then Jordan Osterley, who's probably going to be like the seventh defenseman. That's what he was brought in for. In goal, obviously, Jonathan Bernier was replaced with Nedeljkovic. So now Nedeljkovic comes in, and Thomas Greiss remains as the backup. And that's your goaltending tandem for this year. Now, as far as depth goes, first name that obviously sticks way out is Jakub Vrana. And this is really, really unfortunate for both Vrana and the Red Wings, but he's going to be starting the year on IR. He had to have shoulder surgery and is going to miss at least the first half of this season. And that really stinks because I think Vrana was going to be a huge part of this Red Wings forward group. And I think he was really going to explode on the scene and have a breakout year. 30-plus goals, 60-plus, maybe even 70 points this season. I had massive expectations and really high hopes for what Vrana was going to be able to do playing high up in the lineup with the Red Wings and really get the best opportunity to play a lot of minutes and in a high offensive role in his career. And unfortunately, he had the shoulder issue and is now going to miss a whole lot of time. But when he comes back and is finally ready to return, he will certainly be inserted in the top six for the Red Wings and will be a very important player for them later in the season. Mitchell Stevens, he was kind of, I imagine, brought in just to be a depth piece. We'll see if maybe he knocks out Hirose or Smith from making the team and he makes it, or one of them gets sent down. But I think he's just kind of an extra guy that if injuries start to pile up, he gets inserted in. And they have Bobby Ryan back in camp on a PTO. And honestly, I think it would be a good move to sign Ryan for another year. He had a pretty solid season for them last year. And again, another veteran guy with a ton of experience, a great locker room guy. And I think, with a young team like this, you need those locker room presences. So to me, it would make a lot of sense for them to sign Bobby Ryan and just on a one-year deal and keep him around for this season. On the back end, when they get beyond their top seven, you've got Gustav Lindstrom coming in, and Jared McIsaac is another young guy that they're, it's kind of right on that cusp of maybe not quite in a full-time NHLer yet, but getting somewhat close. He's, I believe, 21 years old, so he'll definitely be a call-up. If they need to start calling guys up because of injuries or whatever later in the year, he'll definitely be a call-up. And they've got another young defenseman in Wyatt Newpower, who will, maybe not quite NHL ready yet, but has, was there in the preseason, played some games, got some experience, and could potentially be called up later on. As far as the third goaltender goes, Calvin Pickard is still there as the third goalie, which he was last year as well. And Yeah, he's just he's been around, he's got experience, he's played at the AHL and NHL levels, and if anything happens to Nedeljkovic or Greiss, Pickard will be the guy that ends up coming in and filling that role for a little while they're away. So that is my projected roster. Again, it's just a projection. Detroit hasn't made a whole lot of training camp cuts yet either. So there's still a lot of roster decisions to be made with the Red Wings as far as who's going down and who is staying up. But this is my best guess at it. And there were a couple spots that are up for grabs. But all in all, I think this is mostly the players you're going to see playing in the NHL this season. So Detroit, like I've said, very, very interesting team. It's fun to watch the Yzer plan at work. And, they're not going to be a playoff team this year, not ready to take that big of a step, but they are slowly but surely improving year after year. And that's the track that you want to be on. And we're starting to see, Raymond and Seider and Veleno and Zadina has been there. So these young guys are starting to have an impact. And we're going to see just how big of an impact it is here starting this season. And I think this team is very much headed in the right direction. I wholeheartedly trust Stevie Y. It's a process. It's not something that just happens overnight. You don't go from a last place team to a Stanley Cup contender in 2 seasons. That's not how it works. It's a slow and methodical build, but he really does seem to be building for long-term success once they do get there. Once they're a good team again, they should be a good team for a long time. This isn't just a flash in the pan. They're going to have a couple good years and fall back again. He is slowly but surely building this team for long-term success down the road, and it's great to watch. So, with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, our membership link, merch store, and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.